If we have to create a wholesale chain, we have to go beyond, above and beyond what we've always done. So invite your friends, share the link with them, get them to come in because it promises to be interesting. Now, there's one announcement before I bring up our speaker for today. We remember that we had a session with Recession, and it was a very, very in-depth session. And so we are going to have a repeat, but we're not going to have a repeat on a Sunday, simply because some of the things is going to be sharing are very technical, and we do not think it's proper to put them on YouTube. And so every quarter, at the end of every quarter, we usually have a session with our members. So yeah, you see that you're an attendee or you're a member. So if you are not in our membership, please contact Ayo Lawrence. Ayo Lawrence, I think you might want to put your number on the chat box so that they can contact you. If you're not a registered member of House of Saviors, you may not be able to attend that session. So kindly reach Ayo Lawrence to be sure that you're in a membership, because we're going to be telling you, I think it's within the next 1 week or 2 weeks thereabout, where Fisaya is going to come back, and it's going to be a Saturday evening or so. And then we are going to be having an extensive session on how to position, especially when it comes to governance and policy, right? You don't want to miss that session. So ensure that you regularize your membership, and your name is in the book of life. Okay, so today I have my big brother in the building. He's a passionate man with diversified interest and commitment. First, is a finance professional with extensive experience in corporate treasury and finance spanning 15 years. He has developed interest over time in personal finance for application in home and personal life. His first book, Honey, Is It in the Budget? I love that book. And other tools created by him has helped several families gather the knowledge and forge the mindset required for the optimal management of their personal and family finance. He's also developed tools that help SMEs manage their financial reporting needs. He's also committed to the mentorship and development of men with the aim of redefining the warped idea of manhood and coaching younger men into being responsible men, fathers, and nation builders. He's able to execute this as a convener of the Man Network, a community of men committed to learning, unlearning, and relearning in order to live the best values during lives possible. It's my own big brother, and I love him so much. Right? Some of us call him Uncle Yinka, but I mean, it's someone I love listening to, someone I love troubling him. I love troubling him a lot. When I'm confused about certain things, I'll just pull him and say, I'll bully him. Like today now, I bullied him to this meeting. He's supposed to be writing an exam, but I bullied him. I used my power. That's what Aburos do. Uncle Yinka, how are you?
I'm fine, Praise.
How are you doing today?
I'm fine. Can you hear me clearly?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, good.
Are you in Lagos, Switzerland, Germany, or where are you?
Ekoile for life.
Okay.
It's nice to be here, and I'm happy that we're having this conversation. So it's going to be a very easy conversation, and I think that I'm going to just enjoy just the banter with you. Hi, BC. Is that BC, our BC Shoba Joe?
Yes.
There was a BC that said hi now.
I think so.
Just wanted to be sure.
Yeah. Yes, that's BC Shoba.
Nice to see you here. All right.
Okay. You're a man of many parts, and I know that you promote a lot of corporate governance. You are very, very, very solid when it comes to financial reporting. Especially, I mean, I know that, especially when it comes to the religious space, you are always talking about the need to be financially accountable, the need to report finances accurately, the need to separate your finance from church finance, and I'm going to take you up on that later. But I'm going to start with, there's a complex global economic outlook right now around the world. Even in America, there's a rising interest rate. Things very tough for people. Nigeria, we're going to zooming on Nigeria. But
Yeah.
I want to know what exactly is happening globally
Yeah.
when it comes to the economic landscape of the entire outlook of the entire world.
Yeah.
And what should we expect? I mean, do we need to fasten our seatbelt, or are things going to get better? What exactly is, a lot of people don't know what is happening. Some don't even understand the basic economics of, how things work. In a layman's language, can you explain to us in House of Saviors what exactly is happening globally?
I'll try. You said layman's language, but I'll try. First, thank you for having me, and I don't take the opportunity for granted. I know I'm in the midst of very honorable men and women, so I appreciate the invite. I think one of the things that people don't realize is how connected the world is. The world is very connected globally in terms of finance. And the more connected the world is, the more impact that something that is happening on one side of the world has on another side of the world. And what we have seen in the last 3 years right now is actually a very deep reflection of the connectivity of the world. And so to explain it, to people in simple terms, what we are seeing right now is the impact of what we call the global north, or the global north. The countries we call the Western countries. The countries that have the bigger economic powers, trying to correct certain economic challenges that they have, and it's impacting on the global south. So let me explain that. I mean, in 2020, we saw the impact of COVID-19. And the COVID-19, one of the major impact we saw was on commerce. The way economics grow through economic activity. I don't know if I can take you back to your economics class, where you have the C plus I plus G, plus X minus M. So the idea really is that with commercial activity, government spending, investment, trade generally, economies grow. So what happened with COVID was that economies shut down. So you had periods where cities, industries, airlines, hotels, economic shutdown. And in that scenario, the immediate impact was recession or lack of growth, within economies. And the thing that most economists do, and which is normal, is that if you cannot find stimulus within economic commercial activity, the next thing you want to do is to create that stimulus artificially. And so what a lot of government or sovereigns did was they pumped money into economies called stimulus. America gave out trillions, to their people. In Nigeria also, we had all forms of stimulus, Where the money went is another story entirely. But what you saw globally was a lot of attempt to artificially stimulate the economy, and so that we will not entirely lose out. So the impact of that was there was a lot of cash in the system. And, I take you back to a normal economics class that wherever you have too much money chasing after too few goods, the impact is inflation. Yeah. So the impact was inflation. But it wasn't as if they didn't know that, this huge stimulus was going to cause inflation. They knew, but it was a cost they were prepared to take. Because it's almost like you saying that a house is burning and I want to go and save my I want to go and confiscate my jewelries or my iPhone or my school certificate. No, the first thing is get out of the house, be alive first, and then if you're alive, you can then go back and then go and see how you can rebuild the house. So that was the approach of global economies at that time, to say, okay, you know what, we're in this problem. we can manage inflation. We can accept inflation now for the cost of for the price of stimulating the economy. But then what they didn't factor was that in 2020, was it 2022 or 2021? 2022 actually. It started in 2021, but it culminated in 2022. They had this Ukraine-Russia crisis, and that exacerbated the inflation crisis. So what they were expecting was that once COVID was out of the way, stimulus will stop, and then there will be this attempt to try to, combat inflation, and then we'll come back to stability. But then the Ukraine-Russia crisis started, and inflation that was crawling just went, haywire. And then so it set panic into the entire system, because nobody knew that, well, I wouldn't say nobody knew, but somehow we didn't expect that the Ukraine-Russian war will have huge impact on supply chain. It will have huge impact on food security in Europe. It will have a huge impact on global economy. So, and the immediate reaction to that was that the Fed started to increase rates. So, prior to 2022, interest rate was very low because the idea was to stimulate. So they put the interest rate quite low. It was about almost 0%. But between March 2022 and May 2023, the Feds have increased rates 10 times. So rates right now are somewhere around the 4%, 4.5% rate. And so the immediate impact of it, it doesn't even matter whether you are doing well or you're not doing well or whatever. The immediate impact of the Fed's increasing rates is that every other country that does business that is denominated or domiciled in US dollar will immediately have to deal with higher interest rates. Now, most of the global south, Africa and all the rest, are borrowing in USD. And so your rates of payment, for your loans and for your debt automatically increases. If you are buying anything now, importing anything from the US, it doesn't even have to be from the US. It could be from China. But if it is invoiced in USD, you have imported that increased cost, what we call imported inflation. So that is essentially what happened. And Nigeria, for instance, is not immune from this crisis. And everywhere we had countries that were affected. I think we had inflation as high as over 200% in Turkey, for instance. Argentina had 50-something percent. We had crazy numbers that we've not seen. In Nigeria now, our inflation rate is about 22%, 22.4%. And so the immediate impact of rising rates, which you started from the Fed, but also which other central banks started to do also, was that the cost of borrowing will be more expensive. And so if you're a businessman, the cost in which you will borrow will increase. And the impact of that, which was what they are trying to do to combat inflation anyway, is that to make it expensive for you to borrow, to discourage you from borrowing, right? So that you don't inject additional capital into the economy and to inflate inflation. So the impact of that is that companies will employ less, and so if unemployment would go up. And also one critical factor as well is that a lot of currencies will lose value to the dollar. And so what you find is devaluation, depreciation of dollars. And that's what you have seen. I mean, there was a time the euro was almost 1-to-1 with the dollar. It has never happened before. The euro was always like, okay, you for 80%. Yeah, I mean, it was never 1-to-1.
Yes.
But there was a time the euro was 1 to 1 with the dollar, and that showed you how strong the dollar was. And so that's part of the impact. And it doesn't matter how strong your economy, was, you are going to be impacted. And Nigeria, despite its own problems, Nigeria had its own issues, and when you add the challenges of the global economy to it, you can see how, we got to where we are today.
Wow. Thank you very much for, going round to explain this. It's some very easy to process the way you've done it. Now, I'll let's come back to Africa, then I'll go to Nigeria. Whether the world is experiencing economic boom or doom,
yeah.
Africa looks like we are perpetually in a state of economic doom. Right. And so the problem I'm having is, I was somewhere yesterday and I was making a presentation and we're doing some analysis, economic analysis, and I was saying to them, that if the most important activities we do in Africa can grow any nation, Africa will be first world. And the most important activity we do basically is we pray a lot. We go in the direction of religion and we pray. More than any nation I have been, and I'm well traveled. I've woken up in many countries of the world, and I've not seen any country that prays as much as we do. Now, why has it been so tough for African countries, to maintain a robust economy over the years? In my lifetime, I am not sure of any African country. Well, maybe the northern African country, which they themselves don't even consider themselves as African countries. Why has it been very, very tough? For African countries, African leaders to be able to create a robust economy that can serve the interest of the people?
Praise. The problem is multidimensional. And I want to be very, very frank and practical here. Africa's problem, if we have to be honest, can first be traced to the, multilateral structures that were imposed on Africa post-colonialism. And because it's important to lay that foundation. Africa did not just become, the way it is. We had a foundation to which we had to build on. And the reality was that the focus of the West and the global South was North, actually, was to see Africa as a source of extracting of raw materials. And so, the interest was not to grow and develop the economy. The interest was to see how Africa itself can, in a way, supply the West. So we're more seen from that perspective. So instead of developing capacity to develop and add value to what we produce, it was seen from, the other way of just supply. We will produce, they will produce, and then they will send back. And you can see this reflected in the kind of multilateral agreements that we have with institutions like the IMF, the World Banks of this world. In comparison to when you look at what is happening in Europe. Europe, when people talk about where dictators are, or the worst dictators in the world, and people mention Africa, I always laugh. Because the worst dictators we've always known in history are in Europe.
Yes.
Just mention them. Hitler, Mussolini, Franco, Putin. Some of all these guys. Africa, yes, we have our own, quote unquote idiots, but the those in Europe are far worse. And the crisis that Europe has had to go through, First World War, Second World War, is worse than we had to go through. But look at the effort to recreate, the effort to rebuild those economies vis-a-vis what Africa, what was done to Africa. You see that the terms and conditions and what was, that we had to function with, was different. So essentially, really, we found ourselves in a place where, what we had to work with as a continent with 1.2 billion people, which is more than twice the population you find in Europe, was not fair. So it wasn't really a fair, playing ground. I don't even want to go into the kind of deals, the kind of arrangements Francophone countries had with France. That's another complete. It's almost like second slavery, in a way. The kind of arrangement that was put in. So when the base is not there, the question is how much can you really build on it? You are actually struggling to be able to do a lot. Now, having said that, and I'm not done really, to be honest. I mean, because I can think about so many things about the. Take for instance, Zambia, for instance. It has a debt to GDP of over 100%. I think 120%. And the president is celebrating the fact that IMF just gave him another loan for him to be able to keep paying back the loan. Look at what we had to do as Nigeria when Obasanjo was there to repay part of our loan. We had to give away a substantial amount of money that could have been that we had already paid back. We had already paid back those loans in interest and everything, but we still had to give back a large chunk to be able to get debt relief. And that stood us back many years. And so Africa, had to suffer from these inequalities. And that has impacted our ability to really stimulate ourselves and grow. However, having said that, from our own, objective analysis of what we have done with what we have, you will see that we have not helped ourselves. The political structure that you find within Africa is such that in itself inhibits growth. Now take Cameroon, for instance. Cameroon has what's the name? Paul Biya. I mean, I think Paul Biya has been there now for what? 40 years?
1982.
Yeah. How long was Mugabe there? As president? See what Nigeria has had to go through, the many years of military rule and so many other things. So politically in Africa, we have not helped ourselves. We've had leaders that are inept, that are very, very short vision, that don't have a vision of what they want to do. And in that context, when you mix everything together, you have a recipe of disaster, quite literally. And so the solution really is not, Africa today is tied into almost like a vicious cycle of debt. It's like you're completely spinning because you can't get out of it. Because the multilateral agreement, the global north, they've kept you in such a place that you can't get out of. But then we're beginning to see some light in the tunnel. And that light is coming from China. And you'll see that now there is a lot of summits going on in Paris, in Europe, in London, in the US, because the West is concerned about China. And Africa is looking at it and saying, look, you give me a piece of bread in one hand, on the right hand. And on the left hand, there's a chain, literally handcuff, so that I cannot go beyond a certain point. So you're saying, I give you bread, but you can't go beyond this. China is coming with a plate of jollof rice. They are saying, take it. All right, just let our people come and work in your country because we need to do something with 1 billion people. And so that shift, and it's reflected in the fact that China, has become a big challenge to, most of the, Western countries in terms of trade. Today, China commands the biggest portion of trade globally. In terms of the economy today, China is only next to the US. It's big, it's massive, it's growing. And so they see the threat and they see what China is doing in Africa. And now there's a concern that, these guys that we have held down are now beginning to wake up and realize that they can get a better deal. So China can give me a deal to pay my debt for 50 years with a 10-year moratorium. And so I can take China's money, pay off my multilateral agreements with IMF and World Bank, and I'm better. I'm in a better place. But these guys don't want you to pay the loan. you understand? They don't need you to pay the loan, because if you pay the loan, you're in trouble. And so what they do is that they come and sit down with you and say, okay, we can help you to restructure the loan. All you need to do is that you have to, do X, Y, and Z. They impose conditions on you. Those conditions are not always friendly, to the economy, but they do. They do. And we have no choice. We have to do so. And so Africa must look at itself and first make up its mind to say, you know what, we're going to have to take our destiny in our hands. We're going to have to become not just the raw material source of the world, but the source of actually supplying the world with goods and services produced from here. So Ivory Coast, for instance, must say, I must not just be a place where I supply cocoa so that the likes of, Cadbury can be sending back candy to me. I must produce candy from here. Nigeria must say that we're not just an oil producing or oil exporting country. We can actually supply PMS to the world. So that's the change. When you become a net exporter, and not just exporter of raw material goods, but of finished goods, you tilt the scale. And then you are now in a position to negotiate or argue with the world to say this is what you want to do. So, Africa's, like I said, I started by saying that, yes, we have our issues. Some of these structures are not fair to Africa, to be honest. We can have that conversation, but also we have to look inwards and tell ourselves, what are we doing that we need to change.
Well, isn't China going to repeat what the West have done to us, at some point, because also their own loan also come with certain conditions?
Yeah, I mean, there's no loan that, I mean, you owe anybody, they will tie things and they will ask for certain things. And so, I mean, the big question is, which one is better? Should we go on this path of perpetual servitude, to keep servicing loans, to be able to meet our budget requirements, from the West? Or should we look at, much, somebody said lesser evil? So the risk is there. Every time you take a loan, to service certain things, the risk is always there. The issue here is that, is your plan not to pay back the loan? That's my question. So when people are saying, oh, China is going to come at you, China is going to go, well, so what's your plan? The plan is take loan and then, not pay back. Of course, if your plan is to pay back the loan and develop your economy, develop your production capacity to be able to service your loans, you have no risk in terms of China giving you money or whatever. And that's what the West knows, that if African countries can get their act together, breathe. If African countries can get their act together, really, and do what is expected, they will be able to create such a huge economy. We have the youngest population in the entire world. We have a population that is ready to consume. We have the ability to turn this continent into a rapid economic paradise. It just takes us to work together. I mean, Europe worked together and they created the European Union. We have been working on the African Union for how many decades now? Even the AFTA agreements that we signed, about 3 years ago, where are we? We're still yet to agree on a common tariff. So Africa needs to wake up and say, look, create a common market. The Europe is dealing with you on the basis of a united market. You're not dealing with just Germany. You're not dealing with just France. You're dealing with the the European Union, and you as one country, you're dealing with an entire continent. And so Africa has to like look at itself and say, look, we're better off if we can organize ourselves, carry the strength of our population, and request for better terms, better opportunities, because we cannot go and negotiate with the West one country over another. We cannot. I'll give you an example. I mean, I'm the treasury manager of a multinational company. We have many companies. Now, when we go to the bank to negotiate for facilities, what we do is that we use a consolidated balance sheet of the company. Because if you go as one company to the bank, just one company, just take your books, your financials, your balance sheet there, the bank will look at you and say you are small. All right? And then the terms that you can get from the banks is very small. When you go as a body, consolidated body, and you take your consolidated balance sheet to the bank to say, look, this is what we want, you dictate the terms to the bank. You tell the banks, this is what I want. This is the rate I'm going to give to you. And the bank will listen. So Africa is not going to come out of the mess that we have by ourselves. I mean, we need to fix our problems as well, but we need to also go with that strength of what we have, that number that we have, because the scales are tilted against Africa. Let me close with this. See what happened with Ghana recently. See what happened with Ghana. I mean, Ghana, had one of the best ratings on its euro bond yields. One of the best ratings and all that. And it was borrowing like fire. It was borrowing. Like they were like, okay, 5 billion collect. It took one rating agency that is accountable to nobody, accountable to no institution, regulated by nobody, to downgrade Ghana's credit rating, and then Ghana's bonds became trash.
Wow.
And that's it. And that's what we're talking about, that you are growing your economy, you're doing everything you can, but one institution somewhere sitting in London, Tokyo, or New York, okay, headed by one Gen Z analyst, can just wake up one morning and say, oh, your bonds are trash. Okay, downgrade you. And then your entire economy is in a mess. Ghana's economy right now is on survival mode. And so we have to look at this from a continental perspective and say to ourselves that we're better organized than we're better, going from a continental perspective, organized one market perspective, and getting better terms from all this bilateral partners.
Now, thank you very much. There was something that kept recurring as you were talking, and that's the lack of unity, inability to work together.
Yes.
Now, don't you think that's an endemic problem with the African race? I mean, I live in Irving, Texas. I see it, and you just talked about presenting a consolidated balance sheet, that enabled you to get a better, in fact, you dictated the terms. Our people can't seem to work together, whether within Africa or outside of Africa. I mean, see, I was laughing my head off all through yesterday night because I was very bored when I got back from work and I was looking for what to do. And usually when I look for what to do, I go on Facebook videos and I check the Yoruba part of it. And the fight was mad. The fight was over nothing. I mean, from somebody sang a song on Aboruboye to funny issues that didn't even make sense at the end of the day. And the people were fighting, people were shooting videos, and everything was about tearing one another down, and you see that cut across board, wherein I was speaking at the conference yesterday in Dallas, and I was talking about the need for people to work together. And someone called me as I said, see, we have done business together. We have hurt ourselves. We cannot work together. And so you see it, whether at family level, at the lowest level of Africans. Ghanaians can't work with Nigerians. They actually don't regard Nigerians. Zimbabweans can't. Everyone is fighting with everyone. Now, if all these things are happening, how do we do as Africans? I've seen Indians collaborate. I have seen Japanese do great things together. But you will hardly see us come together and say, oh, let us do this together. Even the faith-based organizations, if you sit amidst them, the disdain they have for one another, you would think one is having Orumila and one is having, it's worrisome, right?
Yeah.
If we don't, how do you think we can demystify or solve this problem of distrust and inability to collaborate for greater good?
I think the COVID-19 crisis should be a wake-up call for us in Africa. Africa was literally begging to stay alive. Europe and the Western world kept vaccines and ordered them. They had more than enough. They had enough for their citizens. They have enough to store, but because they knew that they were going to need more than one dose anyway, they were going to need multiple doses. So they kept on stockpiled vaccines. And Africa had to go cap in hand, begging to be saved. If anybody wants to, doubt if God still loves Africa, I think COVID-19, is a good example, because God saved us. If that disease had happened here in Africa, if it had really ravaged Africa, Europe will have shut its doors. All of them will have shut us out. They will have basically allowed us to die. That's the reality. And Africa had, it took the UN to arrange some kind of, arrangement that, okay, you work by 1 million, 1 million doses. You take this. I think in Nigeria, the highest we ever took was about 4 million doses for 200 million people. So we asked them to allow us to manufacture. I think that was South Africa that specifically did that. They said, no, you can't even manufacture it. You don't even have the right to manufacture it. And so for me, that was a wake-up call to Africa to say, look, you have to look at what is going on and realize the fact that your destiny is in your hands, not in these people's. And it's not. You're better off trying to work together to solve your problems together. Because if you leave it to these guys, they don't care if you exist or not. I mean, you're already like a nuisance, So what do you need to do to work together? I'll tell you one story that happened to me when I traveled to Kenya. That was 11 years ago right now. Remember there was this terrorist attack in Kenya on the Kenyan Mall. I don't know what year. I think that was 2012, 2013. I don't know. One of this, whatever. Now, so I traveled to Nairobi a lot. I was doing some projects at that particular time. I was doing projects around East Africa. So Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, sometimes go down to Zambia, Malawi, Zimbabwe, and all that. So I was doing a project around there, and I usually just like to stay in Kenya because it was like a central hub around there. And so whenever I'm around that mall that was attacked, I go there a lot because it was a place that I would go and shop and and come. So when the attack happened, I was getting a lot of calls. People are trying to find out, where are you, Yinka? Are you in Nigeria or not? And luckily I was in Nigeria. But I needed to go to Kenya to organize a conference, some kind of training for CFOs in multiple countries. These CFOs were going to come in from 5 different countries. in Africa. And I chose Kenya, Nairobi, for that conference. Westgate, thank you very much. It was a Westgate Mall. And I chose Kenya for that mall, for that whatever. And everybody came. This was just after the Westgate terrorist attack. Now, when I did the training, I told everybody, I said, look, we share the same continent. We share the same challenges, the same economic issues. We share everything. We have huge poverty issues in the country. We have huge healthcare issues. We share the same challenges. And so the reason I brought everybody here to Kenya for this particular event was to say that regardless of what happened, we are together. So it doesn't matter, because we had people, I was Nigerian, we had Kenyan, we had Zambian, we had South African. So we share the same destiny. And so we should not see each other as enemies. You go to South Africa today, you go to Joburg there today and all that, and you see how they treat Nigerians. Of course, Nigerians have their own issues. Let me say that we're not blameless. Nigerians have their own issues. But beyond that, there's almost like a resentment, the moment you identify yourself as a Nigerian. We have, a certain, you go to certain places as well, even in Africa, especially within the North African countries, that the way they treat you is almost as if you are not in Africa. They are not even Africans. They like to identify more with Arabs and with Europe, but they are in Africa. Countries like Morocco and Egypt, Algeria, Tunisia. So and it is, part of it is because you have all this, powers trying to divide Africa in different places. You have the Francophone, you have the Anglophone, you have the Arabs. Everybody's trying to divide Africa for its own purposes. But Africa has to just wake up and realize the fact that we share the same continent, we share the same challenges. We are only going to be better if we come together. Look at what is happening with Egypt, for instance. Egypt, I've had to suffer seriously with their economy because of some of these multilateral agreements they have with IMF and co. They've had to remove subsidies. They have to do a lot of things. And even with everything that they are doing, inflation is still a challenge. The economy is still struggling and all that. So I don't know. For me, I don't know how else to explain it, but to say that if we don't take our destiny in our hands and work together, put our differences aside, and work together, we will not get anywhere. I remember I was having a conversation with somebody from Zambia, at some point, and I was somewhere, and then the person heard my voice, and then he came to me and said, "You must be Nigerian." I said, "Yes." We just have a way that we always stand out. People always know us. There's no way you can run away. So you must be Nigerian. I said, "Yes, I'm Nigerian." And we started to talk about issues around the misgivings about Nigerians. And I asked her the question, how many Nigerians have you met in real life? One-on-one. How many Nigerians have you met? She looked at me and she smiled. She said, I'm probably the first one she's met. And I said, so where did you get your perception about Nigeria? She says, Nollywood. And it was actually there I realized that in their country, and it's also in Kenya as well, there's a TV channel, exclusively devoted to Nollywood. So they watch our movies far more than we do, exclusively. And everything they watch is about how one Babalawo is going to kill another person's daughter, how our roads are such a mess. That's what they see. And that is the perception they have about the average Nigerian. And I said to her, I said, that is all make believe, because for you to be able to, say what you have, what you want about Nigerians, you have to experience them. And I said, from experiencing me, for instance, as a Nigerian, do you have a different perception of Nigerian? And she said yes. So the challenge for us, and this is for us as Nigerians all over the world, do well, do good, do better, do better, pay your taxes wherever you are. Don't be looking for corners. Nigerians have a fantastic ability of seeing loopholes. We are taking advantage of them. We're like that. But do your part. Play by the rules. Showcase the best of us. Because when you are doing that as one person, you are doing that for the whole of Nigeria and probably the whole of Africa.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me come to Nigeria. Because you have talked about so many issues. Okay, I think I can see in the comment box. Julie is saying perhaps the agenda 2063 of African Union. Please, Julie. I've stopped believing in agenda something of African Union or African. They told us housing for all by 2000. We didn't see any. They have never kept to anything, right? So don't
2063.
Don't believe any. They know that 2063. How old will you be, sir?
How old will you be by then?
They just like to throw numbers. Can they even do something in 5 years? Let us see what they can do in 5 years before they go to 2063. Okay, now Nigeria has a new government, right? Yeah. And some people are upset, some people are excited. Of course, we know that the new president of Nigeria is a free market, expert. That's what he believes in, free market, and you can see from his immediate policy. But it's looking like, people. I came to Nigeria, and I decided to go with Crystal, my friend, to the place, and I bought what I would normally, I bought when I was in Nigeria. Basic meal with asun, And when they gave me the bill for the two of us, it was 12,000 naira. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what did I eat? So people told me that things have really gone up, and it looks like it's even worse right now.
Yeah.
Right. And people would have thought that, okay, maybe with new government, things will get better, but dollar is rising. The question on the mind of people is there hope? What are the projections? To eat in basic eatery, a plate is now like 7,000, 8,000. I couldn't even believe it. It was tough for me to pay, because I will not pay for that outside my house. Normally I'm an Ijebu person to the core. What do you think? What do you have to say to the people? Is there hope based on the policies we're witnessing, or what is your initial analysis of the new government from an economic perspective?
Thanks, Bruce. Before the new government came in, so some of us, from professional point of view, had opportunity to kind of, propose certain policy initiatives. Through certain professional bodies like the NESG, for instance. So there were certain things that we felt that needed to be done. And I will explain some of them so that people, will understand these things better. We felt that there were what we called low-hanging fruits, that the things that they could do immediately. And that it wasn't a question of whether or of if, it was a question of when. We had to do it. And one of those issues was about subsidies. Now, we know that it's been a very sensitive issue for Nigerians. Because what most Nigerians don't realize is that if an item costs 500 naira, and then government says pay 150 for it, what government has literally done is put 350 naira in your hands. That's what it's done. Because it allowed you to save 350 naira to do other things. And now that's what many people didn't understand, with the whole subsidy regime, that it was actually really rent. But we were in such a fiscal state in the country that it wasn't sustainable again. Let me just give you numbers. 2022, for instance, we spent approximately $10 billion. $10 billion, 9.7, I think, subsidizing fuel. That is about 360 billion naira per month that we're spending. It's about 4.3 trillion.
Wow.
Now, for subsidizing fuel for people like Praise, who can afford much more.
Amen.
I mean, you could afford 12,000 naira for a plate of rice, and all that. So you can't say that you can't afford it. But that was what was happening. When you look at how much we were using to service our debt, so last year we serviced our debt. 2022 we serviced our debt with about 11 point something billion dollars. Now you are servicing, and that represented about how much was that? That was about 90-something% of our revenues we were using to service debt. So just look at the number. Just compare how much you're using to service debt to how much you're using to subsidize fuel. You're using $10 billion to subsidize fuel. You're using 11 billion to service your debt, not pay back the debt, service the debt. So you are already in a situation where, from a fiscal perspective, you are broke. The country is literally broke. And I don't want to go into, because I know that this is live, I don't want to go into some of the practices that the CBN did, to fund the government. They were literally, doing some very funny things to be able to fund the government. The government was broke, flat broke, and they were borrowing en masse to do that. So we felt that subsidies had to go, and they had to go quickly, because it was the only thing that could, correct some of the fiscal imbalances the country was facing. Now, what impact would that have on the masses? Significant impact, because the spiral effect of it will impact many, many things. The cost of transportation, the cost of food, the cost of supplies, and everything. I'll come back to the cost of food, because there are things we could do on them. But the immediate impact was that it was going to impact, our cost of goods and services. The second low-hanging fruit we felt needed to be touched had to do with the exchange rate. Now, the exchange rate of the naira was such that, like I said before, because of the global realities, the naira was going to depreciate against the dollar anyway. But when you now add some of the attempts by the CBN to what you call put a peg on how far the naira could go in terms of official rate, what you create was an arbitrage. In reality, Praise, it was only the CBN that believed that the naira was at 465. It was only the CBN that believed that. Every other person, every other importer, every other businessman, every other corporate, every other manufacturer had adjusted to the parallel market rate of 750 or 760. That was what we were pricing. So the goods you were buying, the same things that you are saying that's expensive, they were being priced not at the official rate, they were being priced at the black market rate. That's why we believe that an adjustment of the rate would not so much add inflationary trend, because people had already absorbed the impact. The impact was already there. So it wasn't a case of, it will increase inflation. No. I mean, the cars you are buying, I made a joke on social media the other day that I stood on Adeola Odeku Street. Our showroom is just on Adeola Odeku. And I wanted to count the number of Land Cruiser VX that drove past in 5 minutes. and I think I said I counted like 10 in 5 minutes.
Wow.
I mean, these are 2022, 2023 Land Cruisers.
What?
Each of those cars go for 120 million.
Hmm.
And I counted 10 in 5 minutes. Now, I'm not saying that Nigerians are so rich they are buying, stuff, because most of it are B2B business. But the issue is, why is it that expensive? Why is it really that expensive? It's not really that the product itself is expensive. It's the fact, I mean, when you look at it in dollars, USD, it's not. In USD, it's not.
Yeah.
But by the time you convert it to Naira in terms of not the official exchange rate, but the parallel exchange rate, by the time you pay duties on them, by the time you now add the cost of increase in rates by the feds, because those products you are buying, you are buying them off the back of confirmed LCs that are priced to the Fed rates. So put all that together, Nigerian, whatever you are buying that is imported, you are experiencing what you call imported inflation and the full value of the price that is coming globally. And that's what we're experiencing. So the question for us is, okay, so we're here already. So is there a light at the end of the tunnel? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. I know that a lot of people will feel like, oh, we've had this before. We said it before, and we know where we ended. Yes. But we're trying to approach, a liberal free market solution with socialist ideologies. And so it just didn't match. The issue here is this: create opportunities for wealth for people. Create opportunities for wealth for people. The same 12,000 naira you used to buy food was 12,000 naira we were using to buy Pujo in the 80s. So the question is not about what is the rate of the interest rate or the rate of dollar, is how much I'm able to earn today. So if I'm able to increase my economic value or my economic output to the extent that I can earn money in USD, in euros, in whatever, to certain abilities, I won't mind whatever it is. Because to be honest with you, when you do what you call price parity between a bottle of Coke today in Nigeria and a bottle of Coke in the US, for instance, a bottle of Coke in Nigeria is still better than what you are buying in US. Praise.
Yeah,
it's still cheaper.
True.
But the question is the level of income in the US the same as Nigeria? No, the level of income you have there is higher. So you can afford to pay higher. So the issue here is, can we create an economy that increases the ability of the average person to earn more money? When he earns more money, he will not care about what the rate of the exchange rate is. And I think that's what we have to do. It's unfortunate that we are here. These are decisions that should have been taken like 8 years ago, but we're here now, and let's see what happens. But the government has started on the good note.
Okay. Now, in the midst of all of these things, crisis, what opportunities can you say exist that people can position to harness? Because people can, there's so many postulations about economic doom, challenges. For example, in Nigeria, to buy a house, you have to drop like 40, 60 million, 100 million cash.
Yeah.
What aspects of the economy do you suggest or recommend that people should focus on? Because now you've talked about they need to increase their earning capacity. What are the opportunities that exist, and how can people position to harness them?
All right, so in every crisis, there's always opportunities. The reason is because the crisis create problems, and problems need solutions. So the first question is, what problems has the current crisis created that you can take advantage of? And there are many. And I'll give some examples. I think a few weeks ago, the CBN came out. Was it CBN? Yeah, I think it was CBN. I came out and said, oh, you need tax clearance certificates to apply for PTA. I don't know if many people noticed that. At that time, we're still buying cheap dollars from CBN. Now they removed all that now. what happened then immediately after was that a lot of people who needed to apply for PTA realized that if they don't get that certificate, they can't, apply for PTA. So what happened was some people immediately saw opportunity and they created, a business, a business to be able to help you handle your tax clearance. It's not no scam. It was completely legitimate. They will sit down with you, get your numbers, help you to do your tax returns, and then help you apply for your tax clearance certificate. At the very least, you pay the minimum tax, which is about 50,000 naira per year, and then for 3 years, that's 150 plus their charge, which is another 50,000. So in 200,000, you're able to get your tax clearance certificate done for 3 years. And so what did that do? That increased revenue for government because it was 150,000 that they didn't have before that's coming in droves. And you have your tax certificate. So I'm saying that crisis creates opportunities. And we have to be very creative enough to look at what opportunities is in the current crisis. And I'll give you another example. And I'm going to give you a lot of examples. So I'm just going to be talking generally for people. Today, for instance, the new government came out and said, we're going to increase tax to GDP, okay, by 22%. All right. And that looks like just a number in the air. But as of today, our tax to GDP is about 6%. Okay. This guy says they're going to do it. They're going to take it from 10. They're going to take it from 6% to 22% of GDP. Now, in real numbers, that is going from 10 trillion naira to 65 trillion naira in 1 year. How is that going to happen? It's not going to happen by Apple stars. It's not going to happen by magic. Within that is opportunity, a lot of opportunity. All right. And in the policy document that they released, okay, prepared by KPMG, they are put in there how they will do it. So a few people like us who are very, very, observant, have started to look at that document to see what service and solutions can we offer to the government, for instance, or to the tax agencies, for instance, to help them to achieve this target. So I'm saying that, is it going to be opportunity? Is it going to be problematic? Yes, a lot of people will pay taxes. So my advice here for you is that if you have a company and you have not rendered your returns in the last 3 years, go and render your returns. So quickly do it. Because they're going to come after you. And they're going to use technology to come after you. And they're going to use the banks to come after you. And you will pay your tax. So there's opportunity there if you are within the finance sector to be able to say, what can you do? So essentially, if you boil down what I'm saying, is that there is opportunity in technology to look at what technological solutions you can create to be able to do something, to be able to take advantage of the crisis. I'm not, maybe saying taking advantage of the crisis is looking like they're saying about something bad, but really what you're doing is that you're offering solutions that solves problems for people. Now, another thing that there's a reason I'm going out of the normal, invest in food, invest in agriculture. I think those are normal things. I mean, and those will always be there. But what I think is also very important is that people need to be ready to take risk and invest in business. The best time to invest is always during the time of crisis. I'm being brutally honest with you, because the world always works in circles of bust and booms. Now, during the bust, everybody hides. But in reality, what you should do is that's the point where you should invest. Find opportunities to invest and put yourself in a position such that when the boom comes, you are there already established. And so starting businesses It's not. It's going to be a lot more riskier, yeah, because you're going to use your own capital or capital of friends or investors or whatever. But it's also there are also opportunities that you can use. You can take advantage of in terms of offering solutions and offering services to people, to companies, and all that. Recently, there was these two young men. I won't mention their names, but I'll mention the organization that started a project. That project is called Move, MWOVE, which is basically just offering a taxi ownership program for people who are not necessarily um, um, have a lot of capital, But that business today basically is worth billions, literally billions. And these guys came from nowhere. They had a project, they have an idea, and guess what? The World Bank bought into it and funded them. So it's easy to create. If you have a solution right now, if you have an idea, all right, that could solve a lot of problems for people, all right, yes, there's a lot of risk in it, but also there's a lot of opportunity that you can take. And then the last thing I want to say is step up your hustle. Step up your hustle. I mean, I was telling my wife the other day that I got an email from an organization saying that they want to pay me like $500 per hour to consult. I said fine, I'm very happy. Send them my details immediately. All right, that what they're asking me to consult on is something that I can do in my sleep. It's not going to cost me anything. It's my intellectual property. It's nothing. But they want me to sit down with somebody for an hour or 2 or 3 to discuss on something, and then they credit my account with $500. I'm fine. The question is this: what can you offer? What do you have that others are willing to pay for? You ask yourself that. Some people, it's about they have capacity to speak. You have a good speaking ability. You can offer yourself as a compare or whatever it is. Some people it's about cooking. Some people is about you could write a book or something. Some people is about you could help them to prepare an Excel file. Some people it could be as simple as I can help you design a presentation. The question is, what can you do on the side that helps you to earn money? Because the world today is global. We have young kids sitting in Abeokuta coding for Microsoft and earning $5,000 to $10,000 a month here in Nigeria. Now, those kids don't know who they are coding for, because the way it is done with this kind of things is that it is contracted, subcontracted, and all that. So they don't know. They just know that somebody gives them and tells them, okay, I need 10,000 line of code or something ridiculous. I don't know how many, but I need this done. All right. And if you do it in 10 hours, you get $2,000. And those guys are doing and they're fine. So what is your side hustle? Praise, for instance. Kid the side hustle. Right?
I have plenty.
So what's your side hustle? So people have to recognize that there are opportunities all around them that they can take advantage of, and you don't need somebody to come and present a term paper to you and say, oh, this is come and do it. Look around you, find where there are problems, look for solutions, and organize a commercial activity around it, and you'll be fine.
Okay. Thank you very much, Yinka. I have 2 more questions for you. One is controversial. The other one is, so I'm thinking which one should I? Okay, let me take the less controversial one first.
Can I refuse to answer? Is that a possibility?
You must answer anyway. I command you to answer the question. Okay. Now, I mean, you wrote a book. Only is it in the budget, right?
Okay.
And I thought it was a brilliant book. It's just I don't know how you are distributing that book. Maybe it's on Amazon or something. One of the things we don't learn to do properly as a people is budget and stick to a budget.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is this something in us that once they praise sing us, we just want to do loud. And if it's not praise singing, someone is going to speak to you in the name of the Lord to come and donate that your money into something. And before you know it, you begin to spend above what you have, determined to spend in your budget because you've had the voice of the Lord. All right. What's the place of budgeting? How does budgeting help? Because I looked at the American government and I look at how strict they are on budget, that they don't spend arbitrarily. Now that I live here, I realize that a lot of people are very much on budget, heavy on budget. But our people still don't get a memo. We just do things anyhow, spend anyhow. Yeah. And if you are someone who is given to budget, they will call you stingy. They will say you don't want to help. You are this, you are that.
It's cultural, really,
for us, budgeting, and what is your recommendation, especially when people begin to tell you that you are stingy, you are this, you are that, and sometimes it can be very hurting.
What I always say is that your shame is in your pocket, so don't give it to anybody. Don't give it to anybody. Always learn how to say no, and stick with your budget. Culturally in Africa, we like black tax. We are, it's part of us. You call for a party, you plan for 10 people, 20 people show up. And part of the people who show up, somebody who's party, and that's us. That's just the way we are. As a people, we're very indisciplined when it comes to finances and keep it to budget. And that reflects also in our government, in everything that we do, and so it's something that I always say, and I said in the book, that you have to be very deliberate about it. You have to be very, very deliberate about it. And that you have to stop outsourcing your finances to other people or other entities or your whatever. You have to take responsibility to say that my finances is my responsibility and I must do everything I need to do. When I was writing that book, I did a lot of research, and I realized that one of the key causes of divorce in couples was the issue of communication. And one of the major communication subjects that causes rift is about finance. Things like your money is my money is my money, your money is our money. Stuff like that. And I realized that one of the things that couples argue on a lot is finances, and I saw it reflected in my own marriage as well, because one of the contentious arguments I have with my wife always has to do with money. And so, so for me, it was important, to know that, look, if a government cannot survive without having budget, and even the organization that you work for, every corporate organization will at some point have a budget to which they work on. How is it possible that you, in your own personal life, will not have a budget that you work on? It seems like it disconnects, for me. And so I started asking myself, what can I do to ensure that I am able to, to plan my finances and do it well. And so, came up with this okay, let me have a personal budget. And the thing with it, myself and my wife, we sat down, we looked at our income, and then we started to put everything up in a budget, even up to the tithes and offerings we were paying. I know some people will look at it and say, this is not spiritual or whatever. Nobody is saying that you can't exceed it, but at least have a budget for it. Up to the vacations that we will go for, how much we will spend, and things like that. Up to the times that we will go for, me time, myself and my wife, the restaurants that we will go to. Everything was budgeted for. And so that was where we started. And then the next step next thing we did was that we started to track our expenses in line with our budget. Now, it's not like we met it all the time. There was times that we exceeded it in one way or the other, but we started to track our budget, our expenses every day. What are we spending it on? Where is it going to? What is it going for? Now, the import of that was that we were able to know where our money was going to. And one of the feedbacks we got really was that a huge part of our income was going on black tax. So for those who don't know what black tax is, it means things like somebody shows up at your door and say, "Oh, your uncle, your auntie, your sister, your cousin, is going to the university. He needs 200,000. Please, how far? Or they are doing burial in the village. They need to buy cow. You need to do this, or a friend in church is jackpying and he needs 100,000 to add to our money." So we realized that a huge chunk of our income was going on things like this, and it didn't even feel like we were given because we were never always given enough. So one of the things we did was we said, okay, we're going to put a budget on it, and we're going to put a percentage of our income that will go on benevolence. All right, giving benevolence and things like that. I think we put about 20% of income or whatever in that perspective. And so what that came to was a figure in a year. So let's, for sake of analysis, we say it came to, let's say, 2 million naira in a year. All right, as my budget for benevolence. It means that I have that chunk. So I can look at and say that, okay, what can I invest this 2 million naira on in terms of benevolence and made it look like I've given something? So that was what we did. And then, so we'll target somebody in a year. Maybe there's somebody in the family that we want to help, that is relocating, that is doing a master's and all that. So we'll invest a chunk of it there, because there you can actually really feel like you've given something. And guess what? The moment that money is exhausted, praise, what's the exhausting?
What's the law?
Nothing. There's no message anybody can preach. What's the law? Nothing. It's gone. Okay. The only way it can increase is if income increases. That's just it. So we are very, very disciplined on these things because we could track what our expenses was. We knew where the money was going, and we could then plan on how to manage it in the future. And that's how these things work. If you're not disciplined enough to do certain things, you will mess up. You will really, really mess up. And and you will see that over time you are unable to manage just basic things. So I say proudly today that since 2011, I can tell you how much I've spent on groceries.
Wow.
Because I track every expense. Everything I spend money on, I use my card. So it's electronically recorded. So I hardly have cash. I don't use cash. I hate to have cash. So I use my card to pay for almost everything. Even if I use card, because I know I can capture that information electronically and I can track it. And I can tell you how much I've spent on pizza, how much I've spent on DSTV, how much I've spent on this, how much I've saved, how much I've invested. And let me end with this. The way to appreciate money is to be able to account for it. If you cannot account for it, there's no way you can say it as appreciated. Do you understand what I'm saying? And that's why budgeting is very important. You need to budget, you need to track, and then you need to analyze the compare your budget to what you have actually tracked. And the information it gives to you, you apply it in your life and you'll be better. And it is spiritual.
Is there a place to get the book? Is it on Amazon?
It used to be on Amazon, but I had issues on that, so I need to work on that. But it's available here in Nigeria at Roving Heights bookshops. So Yeah, so I need to work on the online distribution of it. But for those who can go to Roving Lights bookshops anywhere in Nigeria, you find.
Okay, I'm sure someone is in this meeting who is very skilled at book distribution online. That's an opportunity for you. Just approach him and collect.
Exactly. Oh,
So,
I'm there. Your mind is
uh-huh.
there.
So let me go to my controversial question. I mean,
Yeah,
you teach on religious organizations being financially prudent,
yeah,
right? And you also teach about human capital development,
yeah,
right? So there was an analysis, a comparative analysis that was done 48 hours ago. And I have it in front of me of how religion is spreading across the globe, and the zoning on UK, for example. And they said that, for example, Islamic organizations are no longer building mosques. They are taking over establishments that have been in existence for a long time, and they're making them profitable to spread Islam. And there were examples, for example, that a group from Saudi Arabia came to the UK and they took over Newcastle United. Newcastle United has been in existence for over 113 years, right? And they bought it over for 415 US dollars last year, right? With a stadium capacity of 52,305. As at this year, the club is now worth 494 million euros, which means they've taken it up, right?
yeah.
Manchester City was taken over by the Etihad Group from UAE. They bought the club at 200 million US dollars a couple of years ago, stadium capacity of 53,400. Current value of that club is 5 billion US dollars. Now, Manchester United is about to be purchased by a group from Qatar for 7 billion. Stadium capacity 74,310. Right. So if you take those three alone, right, have a combined, they bought institutions with a combined history of 393 years in the UK, right? And so physical tickets that people are coming to watch the games are going to, I mean, so they have a crowd of 180,000 thereabout people weekly who pay tickets and make the club sustainable.
Yeah.
Now, the return on investment for those three is that the three clubs are top 4 in the UK as we talk.
Yeah.
Right. So they did a comparative study of what Africans are doing, that what we do in the UK are basically religious activities of meetings that are fantastic, packed meetings,
no economic value.
No economic value. Yet we have brought money and we've spent money. Now, and that got me thinking of what you say about how we waste a lot of things. So, for example, warehouses break down. We take them over, turn them to religious houses, and we lock it up every day of the week, except the days we do whatever. And then we warehouse people, and during their productive hours, we tell them to come for meetings and blah, 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 blah. Now, and that is widespread across Africa. It's our thing, is our way, right? Looking into the future. So if in the future, these Etihad groups have made things profitable, they projected their values, because they will usually project their values, and then they've grown very big. We begin to talk about there's an agenda, they are victimizing us and blah, 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 blah. Now, but we are not seeing what they have done. Now, my question to you is twofold. What do you think our religious organization, because people learn basically, in fact, most of our spending patterns, economic knowledge comes from the pulpit in Africa, because we believe, I mean, since the educational system has broken down, that's where we draw inspiration. Right? What do you think the religious organization need to do better when it comes to maximizing the resources available to them? Number 2 question will be, how can we develop the productive capacity of our people, in Africa, leveraging maybe the religious spaces? Those are my 2 questions.
You want to get me in trouble, Praise? You really want to get me in trouble? I try and answer this as politically correct as possible. Yeah. There was this video that came out. Was a viral video. I think it was last year, where you had somebody who was appealing to his pastor, um, and it was bringing out all his tithe cards, all his offering, all the stuff that he had paid, and he was saying that he wanted him back. He wanted the church to pay him back. And he brought out all the certificates and all that to show that he has gone through Bible school, he had done through everything. He brought out all the scriptures that they taught him to say that if he invested in this is what he would get back, and that he was no longer interested and he wanted his money back. Quite literally. And he was begging. He was actually on his knees begging. And the video was viral and it went around. And what, as expected, the church went after him brutally and rubbished him and said that he's trying to bring down the church. He's backsliding. They did what we expect them to do. They literally just went after him and all that. And I remember I did a thread on Twitter then, talking about the issue, and I said that was a missed opportunity, because when you sit down and listen to what that guy was saying, what he was saying really was not about the fact that he needed his money back. He needed help. He needed help for his business, because he was talking about the fact that he couldn't pay his salaries, his workers' salaries. He couldn't, his business was not doing well. What he needed was help. All right. And I said then that if I was his pastor, I will invite him, sit down with him and ask him a question. One simple question. How can we help you? How can we help you? Because at the end of the day, when you look at it, it might be that just what he needs is some kind of bridge fund. Maybe 10 million naira is what he needed. A bridge fund. All right. And we will have provided him that bridge fund that he will have used to build his business, pay his worker salary, and then go ahead. That we didn't see the opportunity. We saw basically the problem, and the problem was that this guy was trying to take money, deny us of money. Now, I've always said that the church in Nigeria is one of the biggest, most influential, most powerful, most richest institutions. I have a figure in my head. I will not measure the figure about the combined balance sheet of our Pentecostal churches. I'm not even talking about the Catholics. I'm not even going in that direction, just Pentecostal. But I'll tell you that it's in the trillions in terms of our combined balance sheet. Okay, of the capacity in terms of the assets that a lot of these churches control. And what it tells me is that we have a unique opportunity if we're able to come together. And it comes back to this coming together conversation as well. To say that if we're able to harness our resources together and think about how we can create opportunities to better the lives of our members, then we can actually become, we can actually, do a lot of things beyond, our wildest imagination. When you look at what is going on with all these investments we're talking about with the Saudis, when you think about it, when you dig down, you find out that the funds that they are using for those investments are not necessarily coming in from those institutions, the Etihad and all. No, they're coming from sovereign wealth funds. They're coming from some kind of, a pool of funds that are, provided by institutions, to which they are able to then use to invest and spread Islam. Essentially, that's what they are doing, but in a different way. We call it what we call the marketplace ministry or the marketplace economy. There's actually a field for that. I teach that in Daystar. I teach the marketplace ministry. But you see, the thing here is, and this is what I had proposed. And since you are a very influential person in the church in Nigeria, even though you don't want to admit, but I know you are. This is what I had proposed. I proposed that we can set up a fund, what you call a bond or whatever it is, a fund. All right. And ask all the big institutions, big or small, whatever, to invest in that fund. All right. So let's say that we want to create a fund, for instance, today to say we want to create a fund of 5 trillion naira. It's possible within the church in Nigeria, okay, to have that kind of fund and put that fund into investment and say that the yield from that fund on a yearly basis will be appropriated. So it's, of course, the people who invest in the fund, they are the primary owners of the yield, but the fund itself would gain from that pool of investment, and with that pool, you can do certain things. And so, with the yield coming from that fund, can you invest in hospitals? Can you invest in private institutions? Can you invest in concessionary organizations? I was talking yesterday with some of my brothers in Festac who live in Festac, and they were talking about, Festac is in a terrible place. The roads in Festac, and I said to them, we can complain from today to yesterday. It won't change the fact that the owners of Festac don't have the money to do Festac. But if you can get a concession, a company to concession they can concession Festac to, and can go and turn that place around, all right, and turn it around to a profit, you can actually achieve a lot more. And so with a pool of funds like that and the yields from those funds, you can do so much more. You can create so much capacity, so much equity. It's unbelievable what you can do, Praise. As I'm talking to you, in my spirit, I'm excited because I can see the possibilities that you create. See what the Muslims are doing with Sukuk Fund. Sukuk Fund. Bond. Do you know what they're doing with it? I was talking the other day to some Fifi, but I said, I'm an investor in Sukuk. I'm an investor. Yes, I'm a Christian. It's an Islam. Yes, I'm an investor. Why? Because when the proceeds of that money comes in, it doesn't read Islam on it. It reads money. All right, and I'm able to do it. What is stopping us from creating those kind of funds that we can then utilize to create value, invest in industries, invest in FMCGs, invest in capacity development, invest in maritime, invest in aviation, invest in hotels, invest in it. And then with those investments, you create employment, you create, income, and the income, you can do much more. And I've always said that there's nothing saying the church cannot make money. Who says so? Who says you can't? Just pay your tax. That's it. So the church can make money if you just pay your tax. Pay your portion to Caesar. Let Caesar sort himself. But then the money you generate from there, you can then use as you wish. You can put a structure together. You can put a body together that manages those funds and are able to do incredible things. That is the opportunity we have in Nigeria. Unfortunately, we have institutional bodies. When I say institutional body, I'm talking about bodies like the PFN that are not interested in that. They are more interested in being like I don't know. Let me reserve my comments about them. But they're not interested in really developing, capacity. They are more about representing to say we're here. So they're doing something in Abuja, now we're there, or whatever. There's nothing there. And we try to do something within the auspices of the Christian Financial Accountability Association, which I'm on the board of trustees. And we're still working at it. But it's been a Herculean, really a big Herculean task to get everybody to see the opportunity here, and not what is just within their own little space. It is deeply frustrating, Praise. Honestly speaking, I'm deeply frustrated when I see that everybody is just concerned about only themselves. So every church is like a silo. Every church is like a warlord. Every church just wants only the thing. They're just focused on themselves. When the opportunity is there in that putting together bringing together all the values that we have, putting together all our abilities, and creating bigger values out of it.
Thank you very much, Uncle Yinka. I mean, I believe that if we don't fund a righteous agenda, then we have no right to blame evil when they fund their own agenda. We can see what our agenda people are doing, around the world, and how they vigorously fund their agenda, and we have no response. Now they're influencing policies, and we are shouting and screaming that our children are being taken away. Thank you very, very much. I mean, I promised you that we'll do 1.5 hours. We've done 2 hours. Thank you.
Are you serious?
Yes, I can't thank you. Yes, I know you have an exam today, so I'm just going to allow you to go write your exam. Thank you very much. But what I'm going to promise you is this, especially from the last statement you make, I'm going to make an effort. The top, at least the new breed Pentecostal leaders who are making waves around the globe, I'm going to attempt to bring them into a room, and I'm going to get you into that room to talk to them about this opportunity. And let's see if they will respond, or if they wouldn't respond. At least that would be the contribution of House of Saviors to funding a good agenda and things like that. Thank you very much, sir. God bless you. And we have a cooperative in House of Saviors. I'm going to get Tone to talk to you as well, because I know a lot is possible with your wealth of knowledge and experience. Thank you. God bless you, my brother. Thank you so much. Njideka,
I see a lot of friends in the house. Bukola Ajiboye, how are you? A lot of friends in the house. Thank you so much for having me, and hopefully, there'll be other times to come back. My wife is here as well. Can you imagine? Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you. God bless you, sir.